So, in the book of Matthew chapter 7, from verse 24, Jesus was drawing a conclusion on a teaching, on a lesson he was teaching. And he said, therefore, anyone who hears these words of mine and does them is like a man who builds a house on solid rock. And when the wind blew, the rain came, the storm came, the house remained intact. All right, but he who hears my words but does not do them is going to be like he that builds a house on sand. And when all these things happened, the storm came, the wind blew, the rain fell, it washed off. All right, so Jesus was drawing the contrasts between those who do and those who don't. But the common denominator is that they both heard his words. And it was coming from a place where he said, some people claim to be his followers. They do things in his name. They follow him. They perform miracles. And he says, I don't know you. All right. So Jesus was essentially saying that what determines whether I know you or not is if you say what I tell you to do. If you do what I tell you to do, you're the one I know. All right. Making claims doesn't mean I know you. What qualifies you as a person I know is that you do what I say. Now, this is important because Jesus, like he always does, he uses parables and analogies, and he uses things that his immediate audience can understand and relate with. And in this case, and this excites me, if you remember the story of Jericho, the city with walls, and the two spies went to check out the land, to take a survey of the land, and they met with a prostitute called Rahab. And Rahab told the spies that we have heard what your God did for you. So essentially, everybody in Jericho heard the same things, right? But their response to what they heard was the difference. So, while everyone else heard and panicked and were running up and down looking for help from someplace else and putting their trust in the systems that they've built for themselves, does this sound familiar? Rahab chose to trust in the seemingly impossible stories that she's heard, because it's unprecedented that the Red Sea will part and people will walk on dry ground in the midst of the sea. It didn't make any sense. So to them, it was just stories. And there wasn't social media in those days. So there was no way to, to clock it, like they say, and, take screenshots and send. All right. So it was just all hearsay. So Rahab took a chance by saying, I have heard this, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my trust in. If it works, I'm saved. If it doesn't work, there's nothing I have to lose anyway. So they struck a deal and gave her a scarlet thread to tie at the window. Now, this is what gets interesting. Eventually, when the wall of Jericho fell, every part of the wall fell except the part where Rahab lived with a scarlet thread. Maybe you haven't paid attention to that part, but that was the way the soldiers and the children of Israel were able to identify Rahab and her family separate from everyone else. Because if the place where she was living had fallen alongside every other person, then there was no way they would have been saved or rescued. So the fact that she and her entire family were in their own home, living in the wall, and they were saved, meant that the only part of Jericho that remained standing all through that ordeal was Rahab's home. And all of that happened because Rahab heard the same thing that every other person heard, but she chose to have a positive response to it. So, how do you respond to the words of Jesus? Do you try to reason it? Do you try to rationalize it? Do you try to argue? Do you try to make sense of it? Or do you just obey? I mean, you can do that with any other person's words. You can do that. You can do that even with science. But when it's been established that Jesus has spoken, the only right response is obedience by faith. I hope this makes sense to you.